Hello, everyone. So, as many of you should know and heard by now, Ibrahim Traore has made education completely free in Burkina Faso for Burkinabes. He has made education completely free from grades K up to university, and also he has demanded and called for textbooks to be issued to college to be issued free to college students, because he believes that education is um, something essential, okay, that we shouldn't have to pay for in life. And not only has he made education free in Burkina Faso for old people, he has made housing, he has made water and electricity completely free. Because he also believes that those are basic life needs and utilities that should be given for free. And he's not wrong for that, because we shouldn't be humanity shouldn't have to be paying to fucking survive and keep our fucking selves alive. Like, what kind of a fucking system is that? A system that is very corrupt and unjust, of course. Okay. And Ibrahim Traore, at least for Burkina Faso and many other African countries, are following his lead as well. He's fighting against. He's fighting against. He's one of the many few righteous leaders in the world. Because mind you, the world is ruled by corrupt leaders and corrupt higher up entities, and very few world leaders like Ibrahim Traore and no, not Cyril Ramaphosa, Julius Malema, okay, another leader, politician from South Africa. They're one of the many few leaders in the world that's fighting against this system of injustice that's enslaving not just black people, not just African people, but all of humanity. And that's why the fucking West, and that's why the fucking CIA has all their fucking eyes and targets on him, because the West doesn't want their evil system to die out and collapse, as we're seeing right now. Okay, now Ibrahim Traore and Julius Malema have not been the only world leaders that have been fighting against the system. If you are very familiar with African history like that, okay, you'd of course be familiar with Gaddafi, Muammar Gaddafi. He was a leader from Libya who was doing the same thing for Libyans, like what Ibrahim Traore is trying to do for Burkinabes. Then there's also Thomas Sankara, also from Burkina Faso, okay? He was unalived and assassinated by the CIA for trying to help Burkinabes, okay? And then of course after him, Ibrahim Traore. Then Patrice Lumumba, okay? Another leader who is from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was unalived for doing the similar thing. Who else? Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana. Same thing, trying to completely liberate Ghanaians, okay? During the time when all of Africa was trying to, liberate from European colonialism. And when you look at many parts of Africa today, they're not really completely liberated. That's why when I look at all these Independence Days in from many of these African countries, like Ghana Independence Day, Nigeria Independence Day, Senegal Independence Day, Gabon Independence Day, all these Independence Day, they're bullshit. They're all shit, because many of the descendants of these European colonizers, they're still in Africa today, taking advantage of the resources. And then right now, as you're seeing, you have China and Russia up in there, especially China, notoriously taking advantage of the resources and abusing African people in their own homeland, which, African people should not, put up with. There are factories in Ethiopia, shoe factories in Ethiopia, that are run by, Chinese people. And of course, the people that work in those shoe factories are local Ethiopians. They get abused and mistreated by the fucking Chinese that run and operate those shoe factories, get paid very little. And guess who they're making shoes for? Fucking Donald Trump and Melania Trump. And those are people that are supposedly at odds with China. But you have those poor Ethiopians who are working in those Chinese-owned shoe factories, making shoes for another president, another leader who is corrupt, okay? Which I'm about to get into in the next few seconds. So, why aren't other countries like America taking Burkina Faso's lead? Why isn't Donald Trump taking the lead of Ibrahim Traore? And as many of you saw the past couple of months, they're sending the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps, particularly a general from the United States Marine Corps, like what's his name, General Michael Langley, to go in Burkina Faso and unalive Ibrahim Traore, okay? Because in the eyes of the media, okay, because they don't like the stuff Ibrahim Traore is doing, in their eyes, he is a dictator and a fucking terrorist. And those are the same labels that they imprinted upon Gaddafi and what's his name, Idi Amin, another leader from Uganda who was trying to do right by Ugandans by expelling the Indians who were harming their economy, okay, and giving Ugandans back their lands and jobs. So like I said, they have all their eyes on Ibrahim Traore, and Ibrahim Traore, just like many of these righteous leaders before him, like Gaddafi, Nkrumah, Lumumba, Sankara, they've been unalived, and now they're doing the same thing to Ibrahim Traore. So why isn't America? Okay, why aren't countries like America following Ibrahim Traore's lead and Burkina Faso's lead? Because we all should know by now that America is a corrupt and wicked system, a wicked corporation, as a lot of people call it. Wicked. Like, if you go on social media, there's a lot of you will see that a lot of Americans right now are suffering because of inflation, rising, the prices rising, okay, especially groceries, and on top of that, paying bills after bills after bills after bills, and getting paid very little while working these toxic ass, draining ass 9-to-5 jobs, and for some of us 0400 to 1800 jobs. And if you're not familiar with military time, let me break that down to you. Basically working from 4 in the morning and not getting off until 6 p.m. okay, which is a lot of Americans. Okay, we work these toxic ass jobs in these toxic ass environments with people who don't like us and don't get along with, okay, who boss over us and talk to us like we ain't shit, and we get paid very little. Why isn't Donald Trump trying to help out his fellow Americans? Because a lot of Americans, if you go on YouTube, right, if you go to places like TikTok and YouTube, a lot of Americans are voicing out their pains and struggles, okay, even crying and sobbing And I know, Donald Trump and all these US politicians and senators and leaders are seeing all that shit, but do they give a damn? No, they're not gonna give a damn. Because, just as America isn't kind to its own people, America is so quick. Other countries that try to do good stuff for their people, America goes out of its fucking way to unalive those leaders. Because like I said, America is a very vile, evil, and corrupt system, entity, corporation, and nation. And as you're seeing right now, America is getting hit with a whole bunch of judgments by the Most High, from earthquakes, tornadoes, wildfires, and snow in the most unlikely places like Florida, as you all saw earlier this year. Like, there's a lot of transgressions that this nation is reaping for that, doesn't even realize its wrongdoings. And, I just hope that this wicked ass nation, falls very quickly, so that other nations like Africa especially can rise for once and become very successful. Alright? But I just wanted to come over here and, share with you a bit of news and information that's going on in other parts of the world that many of you might not be aware of, because unfortunately, Western media is not going to give credits to Ibrahim Traore and broadcast him in a popular light like that, and make him go viral and compliment him and show all the good deeds that he's doing. Instead, they want to fucking call him a dictator and a terrorist. And especially, speaking of terrorism, right? Especially speaking of them calling him a fucking terrorist. Do you know that Ibrahim Traore is exposing that it's these Western countries like America and France that are creating terrorist organizations in these regions in the fucking Sahel? I bet you don't know that, but now you do, thanks to me. Okay? Thanks to me, who's very much aware, one of the very few people here in America that's very much aware of what's going on in other parts of the world, especially Burkina Faso. I'm here to tell you, okay, that Ibrahim Traore has been exposing the deceit and wickedness of these Western nations. Okay? And if anything, he's the one fighting against these coups and terrorist organizations in the Western Sahel parts of fucking Africa. Okay? So, you gotta listen to the information you take in, especially from Western media, because like what Malcolm X said back in the day, before they also unalived him, mind you, okay? He said that you gotta be careful with what you take in and listen to from the fucking Western media, because the Western media can get you hating on the people that are really and truly getting oppressed, and glorifying, loving, and embracing the fuckers that are doing all the oppressing. So, just food for thought. Be mindful of anything you consume and intake from Western media, because it's nothing but propaganda at the end of the fucking day. Okay? So, like I said, just keep y'all heads up. Try to be aware of what's going on in other parts of the world, because whatever goes on in other parts of the world affects us, affects all of humanity at the end of the day. Okay? The stuff that's going on in Burkina Faso right now is not just an African thing. It's not just all of Africa getting out from poverty, reclaiming their resources, okay, and ruling over themselves. It's the fight for humanity's survival and well-being at the end of the day. Okay, if we all can just learn from Ibrahim Traore and all these righteous African leaders, all of humanity will become liberated, lickety split. Okay, so Any thing that you hear about Ibrahim Traore, please make that shit go viral, because this is a very important time we're living in. We're living in really, really, really strong and divine implementation. All right, but much love and much power to Ibrahim Traore and the people of Burkina Faso. I hope that Ibrahim Traore will remain strong, alive, and standing. Much love and peace to all of y'all. Ashe.